it's just really surreal. Sometimes I practice or whatever. I'm just kind of like, that's my boys, and they've grown up literally their whole lives. We moved to Clemson. They were 4 and 3, and then Clay was born here, so they've grown up part of it, and it's an amazing experience as a father to be able to watch them. They're great teammates. They're grinders. They work their butts off in everything that they do, and they love their journey. And I love watching them put the work in. I love watching them grind. I love their work ethic and commitment to excellence and everything that they do, and their leadership. They're both great leaders. And Coach V's got 2 boys on the team now. Coach Batson's got a son on the team. Jeff Davis's twins just graduated, so we've got a lot of family part of our program. I don't think so. I mean, I think that there's some great teams out on the West Coast. I thought Oregon was a great team this year, and they're a play or 2 away. You got to believe Southern Cal at some point is going to get back to being special again, but Utah had a great year. So I think there's teams that definitely will eventually be here. Washington's already been in the playoff, but certainly football is important in the South. I mean, there's no question about it. It's a very culture-driven sport, and it's very important in the Southeast. Not that it's not important. I mean, we just signed, we think, best quarterback in the country out of California. So football is important all over, but there's certainly great recruiting areas in the Southeast. Yeah, well, I think we've earned it. That didn't just happen. We didn't just show up and say, hey, we're Clemson, come to Clemson, and kids want to come. That's been earned through years of consistency. 9, 10-plus win seasons, national championships, conference championships, those type of things, big wins, big moments over the last decade. When you think about it now, like DJ, for example, and we weren't even recruiting him. His coach reached out to us, said, hey, I got a pretty good quarterback, because it's not like we're just going to go out there and say we're Clemson. We usually have to have some type of interest reciprocated. But I think when you think about it, like, here's a guy that since he was 7 years old, he's been, seeing this version of Clemson, whether it be through the media, TV, what are big games. And so I think that resonates. And so what happens with that, as our brand has grown through our consistency, kids want to come see Clemson. It's become a place. And what I knew when I took the job was that if we could get guys on campus, people are going to see what a special place this is. And that's what's happened. So, and that's how we started the program. And but now, 11 years later, we signed kids from 14 states this year. And last year it was like 14 or 15 or something. And when we've gotten one, we've signed back-to-back players out of California for the first time in the history of the school. We've signed Travis was my first guy from Louisiana. Then we came back right here in Baton Rouge and got Brighton Constantine, linebacker. So, but I just think the consistency, the culture of who we are, and how transparent we are in the recruiting process of, hey, this is what the expectations are, and you don't need to come here if you're not all in with that. All right, because we're going to go to class, we're going to be great citizens, we're going to hold you accountable, those type of things. And so it's pretty cool for me to see a bunch of really, really talented young people that really want that, and they're coming long ways to come be a part of it. Isaiah Simmons came from Olathe, Kansas. He was my first guy out of Kansas. Christian Wilkins came from Connecticut. So, we have to be smart. The big thing for us is the right fit, not the so-called highest-rated player, but the best player in our eyes and the best fit for our program. And we always start inside out. We're always South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, Maryland. That's our base. And then we try to, scout out the best guys that fit our program from all over the country. I mean, I don't know, and if it was, I wouldn't say it. I'm sure they've done a great job. Listen, Coach O's been around. He's been around the block a lot. He's no rookie. So I'm sure that they'll be incredibly well prepared, just like we will be. Yeah, absolutely. No question. I admire any successful coach. I always, I like to study people who are successful. And he's been incredibly successful. And I've followed him and known him a long time. And I've always pulled for him. He's an easy guy to pull for because he's a wear-it-on-your-sleeve guy. He's passionate. It's easy to recognize passion and enthusiasm. And he's got that oozing out of his veins. And I have great respect for that. I think that he truly loves the players. I think he loves what he does, and that resonates. I think with his team and with certainly his fan base and things like that. But I think he's a great football coach. He's done a wonderful job, and it's cool to see because I know he's had I know it didn't go well at Ole Miss. But I think he's a good example to a lot of people because we all fail. We all fail to the world's terms. But, I think it's a choice on whether you fail forward, whether you're destroyed or defined by your failure or you're developed by it. And I think it's really cool to see somebody that, people kind of label as can't do something or failed at something and yet he learned and grew and developed and stayed the course and got back up and went back to work and now to see him at this point, I think that's just what a great lesson, what a great living example he is for a lot of people, but certainly for his young players that he mentors every single day because he's a living, breathing example of, hey, listen, it's not always perfect. It's not always going to be the way you planned it, but how you going to respond? And when you make mistakes, when you do stupid stuff, does it define you, does it destroy you, or does it develop you? And I think that he's a great example of that. And, he did a wonderful job out there at Southern Cal and probably still be there if they had, kept him. But, they for whatever reason, he went in a different direction. And then, I just think God orders our steps and brought him to LSU. And, I mean, I don't think you could have a better fit for LSU than Coach O. I mean, it just he truly loves where he is, and he loves his program, and he's passionate about it. And he's put a good staff together, and you can just tell that he cares about LSU and the people of Louisiana, and I think that's awesome, and he's a great story to follow for sure. Yeah, to be honest with you, I did not see it, so I can't comment on it. So, Joe Burrow, I don't know if there's anything I can say that hadn't already been said. I mean, he's special. He really is. I mean, it's just kind of, as I said, just as a coach, makes you sick watching the tape because he just rarely ever makes a mistake. He's always a step ahead. He knows exactly where to go with the ball. You got him sacked, and then you don't. He creates. he's just like this all the time. Even when you watch him, one of the things I watch is he makes a big play in a huge game in a critical moment, and he just jogs down the field. So he's pretty special. To me, those are things that I look. If I was an NFL evaluator and I want to see how this guy, who he is, I mean, he's just like this all the time. And at that position, I think that's a special quality. Nolan? Yeah. Great story. Oh, I absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he's like a son, but I feel that same responsibility with all my guys, for sure, to hold them accountable, to teach them, to, give them the tools that they need to be successful in life. That's very important to me, and to just grow them up as men that are ready to go be great citizens in this world. And but certainly there's a special connection there with Nolan, obviously, and that was a great moment. It was a really cool moment. And the cool thing is I had told him right before, I was like, hey, man, you're going to have the game-winning interception. Get your dadgum head up. And it was kind of crazy how it all worked out. But, he didn't play very well. He had missed a couple plays. And so to see him come back and make that play at the end, really, literally, his feet were the exact same spot of his failure that we were just talking about on that touchdown on 4th and 1. The interception was in the same end zone, same spot, his feet, same gut receiver, and his feet are like right on the S in state. And it's just amazing how that worked out. People say that, but I've had a lot of turnover over the years. We've had a lot of peripheral staff turnover. I've had 3 different offensive coordinators in my 11 years. I've had just 2 different defensive coordinators. Brent's been with me 8 years now, and it's been awesome. I've got since my I think I'm on my 5th defensive line guy. I've had a couple different DB coaches. I mean, we've had some change. I think the biggest thing is when we've had change, it's getting the right people in place. And then more important than anything is just the culture, just sustaining the culture and starting over every year, holding everyone accountable. And that's probably the biggest thing. And just, again, recruiting. Us coaches, we get way too much credit. You got to have players. And, we've done probably the other thing I would say is just the evaluation and the development of our players over the last decade. Because we've had one number 1 recruiting class in 11 years. And I think my highest might have been like 7th or something prior to that. So we pretty much have been in the top 15. But we've developed our guys, whether it be a Grady Jarrett, who's a 2-star recruit, who's now one of the highest paid D tackles in the league, a Hunter Renfro, who's a walk-on, who had a pretty good year for the Raiders this year, Adam Humphreys, who had 1 scholarship offer, who makes $9 million a year now, a Tyler Shatley, who's been with the Jaguars for 6 years, offensive lineman, that was a linebacker, fullback in high school. I just think we've done a nice job. And then we've had guys like Sammy Watkins, who Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, who were great players. Travis Etienne wasn't a really highly recruited guy, a 3-star guy. So we've evaluated, identified, and developed a lot of good players, and we've done it our way. We've done it simply through the draft, if you will, because we don't. I don't go out and sign grad transfers out of the portal. I don't sign junior college players. I've tried to bring freshmen in. That's how we've tried to do it. So when that's your philosophy, you got to be right. And so I think that's more than anything is just the consistency that we've had in our development and getting the most out of our players that we have had over the years. Oh man, listen, I don't get into all them awards that get voted on. I really don't. I mean, it's special for me to coach this team. It's special for me to coach these guys. I love competing against great competitors. So I don't. It's not special because he's the Heisman. It's special because he's a great competitor and he's on a great football team. That's special. And but yeah, I don't go, oh my goodness, that guy's the Thorpe Award winner or whatever. You know, I don't get into all that stuff. Well, yeah. Same thing I saw in Adam Humphries. I don't know why nobody offered Adam Humphries a scholarship, and when I offered him a scholarship, the media and fan base, people, you know, beat me up. Oh, we're only offering him to get Sharon Peak, you know, because he was a great player, and I'm like, no, this guy can play, and he ended up playing as a true freshman, and like I said, makes $9 million a year for the Titans now. So I don't know why other people don't see certain things. Why was Deshaun Watson the 12th pick in the draft? I don't know. I can't answer that. Why was Tom Brady a 6th rounder? I don't know. Why was Grady Jarrett a 5th rounder? I don't know. I can't speak to that. Yeah, I just no. And to be quite honest with you, God worked that out, because we played in Arizona for the national championship at 15, and after the game, I had 4 guys come to me and tell me they were leaving early. I didn't know they were leaving early. And, you know, I'm not one of these coaches that sits around and goes, okay, he's going to leave, and go sign all these guys. Well, what are you going to do if they stay? What do you do then? I'm going to tell you what you got to run people off, and that's not how we operate. So I assume everybody's coming back until they tell me different. And literally right after the game, like the next day, T.J. Green, Travis Blanks, J. Ron Kearse, and Mackenzie Alexander said, Coach, I'm going pro. I'm like, okay. So we huddled up as a staff. I said, all right, we got 3 weeks. We better go find, or 2.5 weeks. We better go find some DBs, because we're now in the DB business, because we weren't recruiting DBs. And the one guy I knew, we went and signed 4 guys, and the only guy I knew prior to that point, 2.5 weeks before signing day, senior year. That's why all this early recruiting stuff is so overrated. I love it when everybody's committing all them 10th graders. I'm going to get all them seniors that develop. So 2.5 weeks, I had never heard. I knew Trayvon Mullen. I'd never met him, but I knew who he was. He'd been a guy on our board, but I wasn't sure we were going to have a spot. And so, man, all of a sudden we got a spot for Trayvon Mullen. Well, we get him. He plays for the Raiders now. Started as a rookie this year. Was a great player for us. So Brent comes to me. He says, hey, I got a kid. Let's look at this guy. He goes, let's check it. So, all right, well, there's a whole process we have to go through. You can't just being a good player is like the smallest box to check for us. And we find this kid in Olathe, Kansas, kind of a gangly-looking dude named Isaiah Simmons. He played wide out and safety and just kind of roamed around, 3 deep, run around. And so Brent's like, I'm going to go check him out. And so he had 1 visit left. So we liked him. I went out and met with his family. He came in on his visit. He came to Clemson. Literally, I didn't know who he was 2 weeks before. Then midweek visit, the week before signing day, midweek visit, this guy, Brent, calls me and he goes, hey, there's this kid. I just found him. I want to bring him in this week. He's from Virginia. His name's Kayvon Wallace. He's a late bloomer, but he can do a lot of things. And I'm like, all right, well, let's bring him in. So checked out all of his stuff, grades, you know. So Kayvon Wallace comes in. We get Kayvon Wallace. All right. And so I'm looking for another guy, and I had offered Nolan a walk-on spot the spring before, but I had not watched one play of his senior year. I had not one play. And I was like, you know, just something, God just put it on my spirit. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pull up Nolan. So I pulled up his huddle highlights, and I watched him, and I was like, I mean, I'm trying not to be biased, and I'm watching his tape, and I mean, he plays wide. I just watched Kayvon. I just watched Isaiah. And I'm watching this kid, and he's dominating at receiver and at DB, and you got to understand my connection, because I grew up in Pelham, and Vestavia was one of our rivals, and Buddy Anderson has been the head coach there for 50-something years. He was the head coach when I was playing. So I've known Buddy Anderson forever, and Vestavia High School has put out hundreds of Division I football players. All right, and so I played with some of them at Alabama. And so I called, after I watched it, I called Buddy Anderson, and I said, Coach, I want to ask you something. He had no idea why I was calling. I said, why is nobody recruiting Nolan Turner? And he just kind of, it was like I went, psh, and just, burst the bubble. And he was frustrated about it. And he said, Coach, I can't understand it. He's as good a player as I've had in my 50 years here. He said the kid can run. His best football's in front of him. He's a late bloomer, just like his dad was. And so I had all this working knowledge. And I played with KT, and KT was a late bloomer. And so I took the tape down there and pulled it up down there with Brent. And I said, hey, I want you to tell me what you think about this kid. And so Brent watched him, and he's like, I love this guy. Where is he? That's how Brent is. And I'm like, that's all I need to know. And so then I made a call. And I said, hey, I'm coming to see Nolan tomorrow. And so it was a pretty special moment. And so that's what I mean. When I say God worked it out, that just happened. And it wasn't some charity thing. Some of these storylines that people put out there that, Coach Swinney did this because of his buddy. That all sounds good, but that's not reality. If I didn't have a spot, he wouldn't have got a scholarship. We had 4 guys leave, and we were looking for people, and he earned it. And then he's coming here, and he's and I told him early on, I said, man, let me tell you, here's what the story. Early on, you're not good enough. You shouldn't be here. We only signed you because Coach is friends with your daddy, whatever. I was like, man, you're going to have some thick skin and rise above that. I'm telling you, you can play, and you're going to be a great player. And I talked to him. I'm thankful that I have lots of examples like that, guys that have come through our program, similar deals. So he's just done an amazing job. He's a great leader. The cool thing for me is because of what he went through with his dad, he was kind of a very quiet, reserved kid. And his dad and I actually talked about that. That was something KT worried a little bit about. And KT was like that. KT was kind of quiet and reserved until you got to know him. And Nolan, for most of his childhood, he just had it was a challenge seeing his dad the way he did. And so, I think just for me, watching him develop as a man and seeing him, just the smile that he has, his confidence. Because I think early on, it's like he felt like he had all this to prove. And it's hard, especially in today's world with message boards and social media and all these things, these external pressures that get put on these young men. And so just watching him blossom and develop, smile. He's a great teammate. The players love him, and he's just an unbelievably hard worker. And he has bloomed and blossomed at Clemson, and had a great career. He's had some big moments, and going to be back next year. He's been an off and on starter for us this year. We kind of consider him a starter, but he's got a chance to really be one of the best leaders on our team next year.